No, because the president gave economic freedom to the population to uh, be prosperous and to put that earnings of their work into unconfiscatable, uncensorable Bitcoin. So it's the complete opposite of what you'd find in any other country, where they abhor the idea of giving their citizens freedom of censorship resistant money and unconfiscatable money. So the mentality and ethos of Bitcoin is pervasive. The adoption rate in this country, I say, in terms of Bitcoin is 100%, because everybody here understands to some degree what Bitcoin means and what it means to freedom of money, separating money from state, freedom of speech. And so this is just really across the board benefits. And as you know, in a Bitcoin economy, it's not like a proof of stake economy where the more fiat money you have, the greater influence you have on the government to make it easier for you to accumulate more fiat money, right? It's called corruption. The only thing you have to know about price is that Bitcoin's purchasing power will increase against everything, everywhere, forever, and everything goes to zero against Bitcoin. The God candle idea is one that I think is still in play because of the pent up buying demand we have right now. And you have a surfeit of derivatives that have entered the market in the last year or so with Wall Street getting involved. And I think they're kind of positioning themselves and helping each other out, build big positions. And then we'll see a big move. And that's what I expect.
We've seen hash rate rise up dramatically. So do you see that as like a continuing trend where, it's not only, at home miners or anything like that, but more nation states start to get into Bitcoin mining?
Right. Like I said, hash rate is more interesting than price. Hash rate's never really been in a bear market. Hash rate's been going up continuously since day one. And it tells you the commitment of people throwing resources and energy at the network. The price will fluctuate, but the trend of people throwing more network at the network is really substantial. And now we've got major nation states involved. We've got El Salvador, of course. Bhutan has come out and said they've got over 13,000 Bitcoin. We've got a couple of more countries in play. I know here at the Bitcoin office in El Salvador that Stacy runs, she is really on top of making sure that Bitcoin in El Salvador, it remains competitive as the global hash rate heats up, I'd say, Stacy. For the U.S. to catch up to El Salvador now on a like GDP comparison, the U.S. would need right now to have over $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin, given the size of their economy. So with El Salvador having getting close to $500 billion worth of Bitcoin in a million in a $31 billion economy, it's already a significant part of their overall structure, and that's going to give people an enormous advantage going forward. We were coming out of an era where size gives you an advantage, and we're entering into an era where size can be a disadvantage. So the size of maintaining the U.S. And the U.S. military is becoming burdensome and onersome, and it looks unsustainable. And we're seeing that right now. And the same thing happens usually in all empires. The Roman Empire, they ran out of money to defend themselves. The soldiers wouldn't take the denarius anymore. They were doing the coin clipping, and they just walked away, and the empire collapsed. I think you see that in the U.S. right now. You see that in Europe right now. The paper money has gone down in value to the point where the military and the security people don't accept it. They don't want it. It's just not worth their time and energy, and so they will collapse. And here in El Salvador, we have the opposite.
I think it also shows that important thing that I just mentioned several times is the mindset. And the mindset is that there is an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity, not even just once in a lifetime. We have a once in 500 year type leader in El Salvador, and we have a once in 5,000 year sort of opportunity right now with Bitcoin. There have only been two other layer one monies, which is gold and the US Treasury. So this sort of moment in time does not happen often. There's only been two other times in in global history, human history. And here's another moment right now, and that is we're still early with Bitcoin. And if we can work hard enough and we seize this opportunity, the opportunity must be recognized and seized, then that is really important. That it's not just President Bukele and Max and Stacey, it's the entire country realizes and understands the opportunity that has presented itself to El Salvador. Bitcoiners were acting like they were going to, that this was a new revolutionary, this was a moment in history. We were talking like that back in 2010 or 2011. Like people, I mean, even Hal Finney, like 2 days after the first Bitcoin was mined, was like, this could go to $10 trillion. Like that's a mindset of a Bitcoiner. And that's what we have in El Salvador that other nations will take a while to instill, but it's hard work. So you're going to, like, Europe and the United States have had it so easy on a fiat standard, and it's going to take way longer for them, I believe, to just shift out of that mindset, because you have to shift out of the mindset of getting free money. It's hard to suddenly have to work, right? When you just are eating bonbons all day at somebody else's expense, right? Like when you're printing money, somebody else in the rest of the world is financing your lifestyle. So once they have a way out, Bhutan is mining Bitcoin, El Salvador is accumulating Bitcoin, there's going to come a point very soon where we don't need to finance the lifestyle of Americans who are receiving Biden bucks or Trump dollars or any of this, the free money.
I guess I worry that, a lot of people are coming in and, it's maybe a lot of foreign influence then now that kind of diving into El Salvador that's maybe is hurting the locals. If I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, or are you just seeing kind of positive, I guess almost like positive reinforcements coming in?
Well, no, because the president gave economic freedom to the population to be prosperous and to put that earnings of their work into unconfiscatable, uncensorable Bitcoin. So it's the complete opposite of what you'd find in any other country where they abhor the idea of giving their citizens freedom of censorship-resistant money and unconfiscatable money. So the mentality and ethos of Bitcoin is pervasive. The adoption rate in this country, I say, in terms of Bitcoin is 100%, because everybody here understands to some degree what Bitcoin means and what it means to freedom of money, separating money from state, freedom of speech. And so this is just really across the board benefits. And as you know, in a Bitcoin economy, it's not like a proof of stake economy where the more fiat money you have, the greater influence you have on the government to make it easier for you to accumulate more fiat money, right? It's called corruption, and the U.S. is the king of it. Here, because they're heading toward a pure Bitcoin standard, there is no proof of stake mentality. People have the proof of work mentality, and that's true in the top of government, and it's true at the pupusa seller. We're all basically on the same proof of work standard.
And it's important that the security situation really, really altered everything here, because we had Bitcoin first, and at that time Max and I said that this would become Renaissance 2.0, and we would have a similar impact of the florin on florins. Like you could have that sort of achievement, but the president pivoted for a year. He took time off and focused on fixing the situation for everybody. And if you have unconfiscatable money of Bitcoin, and yet half the population were living in areas that were occupied by plunderers who were violently taking their money and taking their earnings so that they couldn't even afford to buy any Bitcoin or stack any Bitcoin. Everything got stolen from them. It's hard to describe until you go there. If you go to Soyapango or Popa or Ilopango, places that were occupied by gangs and where there was a hopelessness, because it was like being in a fiat mindset where, like, no matter how hard you worked, they were just going to steal it. So why work hard? Because they're just going to steal anything you have. So that's over, and that mindset is shifting so rapidly where they're building stuff. They're starting to build and believe in the future. The one thing that has had the most impact economically in terms of what you're saying, like foreigners coming here, it's not actually foreigners, it's Salvadoran Americans, because there are 3.5 million Salvadorans who were forced out of their own country over the past 40 years by civil war, by gang war, and by political corruption. So the presidents of this country before President Bukele used to just tell people to flee if you can, like get the hell out of this country. Like they had abandoned it. The presidents, the leaders of the country had abandoned it. They weren't planning on fixing it, and so it told people to flee, right? And so if you could get out, you got out. And the mindset of most people was like, if we could get, our son to America, then that's the best hope we have for our child. Well, they're returning. There's 3.5 million Salvadoran Americans, Europeans. They live all over the world, Australia. A lot of them are starting to return, and they have a lot of capital, and they have a lot of wealth, and they have a lot of experience globally. Living globally, living outside your own country always expands your mind and your talent and ability, and you become a better able, like, anti-fragile person, right? So a lot of Salvadorans are returning that are diaspora, and so we do see adjustment to that they're getting used to all these very successful Salvadorans from abroad who are returning to El Salvador and bringing a lot of capital with them.
Yeah, plus the numbers are in. As of this week, the numbers are in. We now officially have reverse migration,
yes,
where more Salvadorans going back to El Salvador than leaving. So we've crossed the Rubicon. We've crossed that river down the Rio Grande, and we've got a reverse migration really happening here in El Salvador, because the opportunity, the shining city on a hill, the Statue of Liberty is a volcano in El Salvador. People who want opportunity and they want a future for their children are moving to El Salvador. And also the framing of the question about, well, is there foreign influence? I mean, the fact is that it goes the other way as well. El Salvador is influencing the region. El Salvador is influencing the world. We see that for sure. Other countries in the region and around the world are asking themselves, that's why the president's on the cover of Time magazine. How can we be more like El Salvador? So the influence is here and gravitating out, radiating out.